Yeah. Blackjack. Life is like the game of cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Yeah. Blackjack. To play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
First and foremost, I want to say I did this research not to defend Tupac Shakur, but to separate fact from fiction. And for every Tupac fan who listened to his music and understood his passion, I did this for you and for the truth. I don't know if you ever heard of the book, A Million Little Pieces by James Fry. He went on the Oprah Winfrey Show and she had recommended his book for her book club. And it was a memoir about his criminal history and drug use. Upon further research, it was proven that he lied, and it became a national scandal. What Faith Evans wrote in her book, which is also considered to be her memoir, is even worse, as it relates to Tupac Shakur alleged sexual harassment and guerrilla pimp tactics in his hotel room on October 19th, 1995. You ask yourself, how do I know the date? I'll explain to you in a minute. Faith Evans' feeble attempt to play Jedi mind tricks with dates and times to fit her wildly exaggerated, wholly embellished Tupac story is shameful. I'm not sure if Faith Evans wants to tell her guerrilla pimp story about Tupac or not destroy Tupac's iconic acting and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame legacy.
I ain't really trying to shit on his legacy, you know what I'm saying, so to speak, in terms of just my personal experience.
Don't be ashamed. I think the truth is more important. Listen carefully. Number one, Faith Evans said, if I had known that Suge Knight had anything whatsoever to do with Tupac and hiring me as a vocalist, I would have never in a million years have agreed to do it. What that quote establishes is the fact that Tupac was signed to Death Row Records. Faith knew that Death Row Records was hiring her as a vocalist, and Suge Knight and not Tupac or his so-called manager would be responsible for payment. Number two, Faith Evans said, before long, Suge Knight came in and made a beeline to where I was sitting in the studio, meaning Suge Knight came into the studio and introduced himself. That quote would establish the fact that Faith actually met face-to-face with the individual who would be responsible for paying her, but yet she did not mention nothing about her so-called $25,000 fee or the fact that she would, quote, need her money up front, like her memoir said. Number three, Faith Evans said, Tupac was done with his session and had led me to a waiting limo in the parking lot. Where's my check, I asked. This quote would establish the fact that she hadn't mentioned the so-called $25,000 fee prior to rendering her service as a, quote, hired vocalist. That would also establish the fact that she had not, quote, got clearance from her label prior to rendering her services to Death Row Records, as she clearly understood that she was under an exclusive recording contract with Bad Boy Records. Number four, Faith Evans claims that Tupac said, my manager is bringing it to my hotel right now. He said, I could bring it to you later on this evening, or we can swing by there right now and pick it up. That quote would establish the fact that Faith Evans had not informed her manager, Mark Pitts, nor had she given Tupac Mark Pitts' number like she told Drink Champs, because if she did, there would be no reason to go back to Tupac's hotel room to pick up or wait for any check. Number five, Faith Evans said, and of course when we got there, no manager was in sight. There were two dudes in Pac's room smoking, drinking, and listening to music. After an hour waiting for the manager, I was ready to leave. This establishes the fact that there were two witnesses who saw Faith enter Tupac's hotel room, and upon writing a book, she needed to establish a legit enough reason as to why she, as a married woman, would be in Tupac's hotel room with two witnesses. Number six, Faith Evans said, his two friends left the room. We were now in his hotel room all alone. This would establish the fact that the $25,000 service fee that had not been mentioned to Suge Knight, according to her memoir, would be that legit enough reason / excuse for her being in Tupac's hotel room all alone with him. Remember, there were 2 witnesses. Number 7, Faith Evans claims that Tupac said, "The situation with the money is like this," he said. "If I give it to you, then you my bitch." What this establishes is the fact that there are allegations being made that cannot be corroborated. And until the deer learns how to write or Tupac comes back to life, we're only going to hear the lion's side of the story. Number 8, Faith Evans claims that Tupac said, "Well, all right then, fuck you, bitch. You want to leave? Tell the driver to take you home. The limo is still out there. Get the fuck out." Once again, this establishes the fact that there are allegations being made that cannot be corroborated. And until the deer learns how to write or Tupac comes back to life, we're only going to hear the lion's side of the story. So basically, the $25,000 is a myth that can't be corroborated, and it was created as a motive, or better yet, a justification for when it came to write her book, for the fact that Drew Down and rest in peace Big Sight witnessed Faith Evans going into Tupac's hotel room. That's the reason why no defamation lawsuit was filed against Tupac for him saying that he had sex with Faith Evans, because there was 2 corroborating witnesses who could testify on Tupac's behalf to say what they really saw, Faith Evans going into Tupac's hotel room. We've all heard the saying, it's easy to remember the truth, but it's hard to remember a lie, because a lie usually changes over time. On June 12, 1996, Faith Evans said in an interview that she never even went to the studio with Tupac, and she only recorded a reference track for another girl group who was thinking about giving her vocals on that track to Tupac, and it wasn't business with him, and it never got that far.
Situation with me and Tupac, there really never was a situation. I mean, we met, he was really nice. He asked me to work on his album. He told me he could get it approved or whatever, get clearance from the label. And then I found out that he probably couldn't. I was out there working with another group. I won't name them. They have nothing to do with Death Row. Okay. And I was writing for them. That's how I met him. I did a reference vocal for another group I won't name. Okay. And it ended up that they were going to try to use the vocal on Tupac's album. So I guess it was for him or whatever. I really don't know. But then I come back home and the first thing I hear has nothing to do with his record is that me and him were involved or whatever. That's not true at all. I mean,
it was strictly business, no pleasure.
It wasn't even business. It would have been business, but it never got that far.
It was you and somewhere else, and then it was moved on to his project, supposedly.
Pretty much.
Okay.
It never was moved on, and my voice is not on his album.
And once again, there was no mention of that mythological $25,000 check for supposedly a studio session that she never attended, according to her own words. Rewind that back if you didn't hear it. But now, all of a sudden, on July 26, 2018, on Drink Champs, Faith Evans said when she got back to Tupac's hotel room, she claims that Tupac said this.
But, it was just when I heard about it, and then it was right after me coming back from LA, experiencing that session with him, and him kind of breaking on me, saying I gotta suck his dick to get my check. It was.
It's interesting how a willful participant can all of a sudden turn into an innocent, manipulated, naive, sexually harassed victim when it's time for the publisher to cut that check to write that book, in which Faith Evans so vividly remembers all of a sudden the details of the salacious conversation that took place that night at the Peninsula Hotel.
I decided to do the book because I was pregnant and refused to do a record with the label I was on at the time. Right. That's the only reason I did it. And the guy was asking me for years to write a book. And I'm like, okay, that's a cool little couple $100,000, Yeah. And that's why I did it.
Now let's separate fact from fiction, or better yet, her sensationalized truth from the truth that can actually be corroborated. On Wednesday, October 18th, 1995, was the night I witnessed Tupac talking to Faith outside of the Hollywood Athletic Club while she sat in her cherry red BMW. The very next day, on October 19th, 1995, LA Times reporter Chuck Phillips did a recorded interview with Tupac at approximately 2 p.m. while Faith Evans and Tupac were at Can-Am Studios recording Wonder Why They Call You Bitch.
October the 19th, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Tupac, Shakur, Can-Am Studios in Tarzana. His first interview.
The money young women in your need to check in the locker room. Take it back.
I'm saying I went into the verse.
That's all right.
All right.
Remember, we can bring you in and out whenever we want.
You want to save it? Yeah. You want to push?
This shit mad fast to be serious.
Hey, but you're doing it. You're doing it though, girl.
Exactly, you are. We did 13 tracks. 13 tracks in 4 days. 13 fat tracks.
We heard a couple of them. What's the general thing you heard?
Alright, the ones that's gonna really be humdingers, the big ones. 2 of America's Most Wanted with me and Snoop. That's gonna be a humdinger. Right. Shorty Wanna Be a Thug. That's gonna be a big one. And Wonder Why They Call You Bitch with Faith. That's gonna be a big one. Picture Me Rolling. It's gonna be a bit. It's just gonna be fat. I guarantee it's different than any other album I came with so far. This one might throw a lot of people off because I just blacked out.
And after the studio session, Faith Evans, according to her memoir, went back to Tupac's hotel room where she said Tupac sexually harassed her, among other things. As it is a fact, Faith claimed in her memoir that she never saw Tupac again after that day in the studio, and he never paid her so-called $25,000. Then why on November 14th, 1995, with pictures with Whitney Houston and Tupac, and also Faith Evans and Tupac, as undeniable proof, why would Faith Evans share a table at the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack release party and then allow Tupac to share her limo back to his hotel where they both attended an after party for the same soundtrack release party? You must understand, in her memoir, she explained it like this. After the party at the hotel, we hung out a bit more with Tupac and his friends and shared a blunt and discussed the specifics of my guest appearance. According to Faith Evans, in her memoir, the song, The Wonder Why They Call You Bitch, was recorded and completed on the same day, and that day will be October 19th, 1995, approximately between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m., according to the Chuck Phillips recorded interview.
October the 19th, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Tupac, Shakur, Can-Am Studios in Tarzana. His first interview.
We can now confirm that these allegations that were made are 100% completely and utterly false and mathematically impossible. They are better known as a lie. Tupac Shakur has now been vindicated from allegations that have now been proven false, and been proven false with dates, times, and independent witnesses and pictures, which are worth 1,000 words. Because in her book, she tried to make it seem as if the song Wonder Why You Called You Bitch with Tupac was recorded after the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack release party on November 14th.
Right.
When actually it was recorded before on October 19th, as confirmed by Chuck Phillips' interview.
Wow, that's crazy, yo.
So she lied about never going into the studio with Tupac in the 1996 interview, and she lied to Biggie about what happened after the studio, according to her memoir. And then she lied again about the encounter in Tupac's hotel room on October 19th and after, because she said she never saw Tupac again after that night. Now we know that's not true because of the pictures from the party on November 14th at the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack release party. I don't think she'd never thought that anybody would ever bother to look up to dates to really put this story together, that it's all a fabrication. Furthermore, we believe Tupac's version of the story that he did have sex with Faith Evans, and after his death, Faith Evans attempted to capitalize on that truth by denying it and making salacious allegations against Tupac that have now been proven to be untrue. And unfortunately, Tupac could not be here to defend himself. What we know for a fact is that Faith did go to the studio on that day in question, and that was corroborated by Natasha Walker and the details she explained in this interview.
Tupac, because me and her was sitting by each other, Tupac came and sat in between us. And I was like, okay. And then she put her leg in between Tupac's leg, like on top of his leg, like, oh. I said, so he started rubbing her leg. After somehow later on, me and Pac got along. I said, Pac, what the fuck is this? And she was like, yeah, I got that bitch. I got his bitch sucking my dick. I said, what the hell? He said, yeah, this ain't nothing. This ain't nothing. I'm just, I'm showing them. I'm like, okay.
The studio incident can also be corroborated by actor, singer, and reality TV star Ray J in this statement. Also, Tupac's bodyguard, Frank Alexander, rest in peace, who also was there that night at the Hollywood Athletic Club, who also followed Tupac and Faith to and from the studio back to his hotel that day. He said in an interview when asked about Faith and Tupac's sexual escapade, he said this.
Did Pac sleep with Faith Evans?
Yes.
And also, last but not least, the person who actually opened the door when Tupac and Faith reached the hotel room, West Coast legend, rapper Drew Down, who also said Big Sight, rest in peace, a member of the Outlaws, was also present, and he confirmed the sexual encounter in this interview.
Yes, this is true. This is true. The Pac knocked down Faith. Yes. And whoever said, yeah, hello, I was there. Yeah, man, rest in peace, Big Sight, too. He was there also. You feel me? That's a whole story wrapped in itself.
Remember the two guys Faith confirmed in her memoir that were there in Tupac's room? Yup. Those were the two guys, Drew Down and Big Sight. The mythological $25,000 can't be corroborated. But what can be corroborated has been done so by 4 independent witnesses who have no axe to grind, but basically were just saying what they saw. I'll leave it up to you to decide what happened in that hotel room for the hour or longer that Faith said she was there in her memoir. When Biggie asked Faith, and then what happened, after she recorded the song with Tupac that she said didn't actually happen in that infamous 1996 interview, but happened in her memoir, Faith was dishonest and said nothing. I swear to God nothing happened, but something did happen. She went back to Tupac's hotel room and never told Biggie according to her memoir. And also in that infamous 1996 interview, Faith mentioned none of those salacious details because she claimed it never got that far. And in 1995 at the Hollywood Athletic Club, when Faith claimed Tretch introduced her to Tupac for the first time, I know that wasn't true, because I was the guy that told Tretch that Tupac was outside talking to Faith right after watching him pull up at the Hollywood Athletic Club. As to what happened in the hotel room that night at the Peninsula, I'll let you decide for yourself. As for me, I believe Tupac, because he said he had sex with her once, and his story never changed until the day that he died. I believe Tupac did give her some of that thug passion. I also believe it wasn't about the money, and it wasn't about the fame. Tupac Shakur was a real boss player in the game. And in 1993 at Bowie State University, I watched with my own eyes Tupac Shakur stop his show and let an unknown MC by the name of Biggie Smalls take over the stage and rock the mic, sharing his platform because he really had love for Biggie. I was there at that concert and witnessed it with my own eyes. Shout out to my homie Wampus and Big Butch.
I have proof to say what I was doing. I did more for the East Coast than the East Coast did. I put more guns in East Coast niggas' hands than East Coast niggas did when they came out here. I put them niggas on the more weed gates and weed spots and safe havens and safe spots than the East Coast did. I put more rappers on than they did. I gave Biggie his first shows.
know that Tupac was upset because he felt like Biggie knew who set him up at the Quad Studio incident and wouldn't tell him who did it or didn't warn him. What I also know is when you write books or make movies, sometimes you need a villain. So when Faith wrote her book, Tupac was cast as one of those villains. After all, he was controversial and one of the greatest rappers of all times, who sold over 75 million records, and tapping into that fan base with a story about Tupac wouldn't be a bad idea. Even if the supposed detailed, salacious conversation that didn't happen and wasn't mentioned in that infamous 1996 interview couldn't be corroborated because Tupac was no longer here to defend himself. At the end of the day, we all make mistakes because we're human. Do I think Faith will ever tell the truth about what happened at the Peninsula that night with Tupac? No, because she's already taken the check from the publisher to write her memoir, and it would put her in legal jeopardy. I get it. I'll never forget these words from Tupac, unrelated to Faith Evans or any other female in particular. He said, "There's a lot of real G's doing time because a groupie bit the truth and told a lie. Me personally, I don't have an axe to grind. I just wanted to set the record straight because the guy who wrote Dear Mama, Brenda's Got a Baby, Baby Don't Cry, and oh yeah, One Day at a Time, one of the songs that I co-wrote with him, he's not here to defend himself. So I just wanted to separate facts from fiction. Peace. Rest in peace, Biggie Smalls and Tupac Shakur. It's time for the truth to come out."
Straight Game.